Hey everybody, Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go.
On today's show, we have Mark Rivera, who is a local musician. He has been in a handful of bands that tour the state and the nation, or are you more of a Florida band, or have you guys played?
More Florida, yeah.
Okay. Now, are you from Tampa originally?
Yes, born and raised, actually.
Okay, where'd you go to school?
High school, I went to Chamberlain and Gaither.
Okay. Now, siblings?
They're all older than me, three siblings.
Okay.
Got a brother and two sisters.
And where do you fall in that lineup?
I'm the youngest.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so who introduced you to music, or what's your first memory of music, getting into music?
I was always like kind of in, my parents from Puerto Rico originally.
Okay.
So we always had like some sort of music in the house growing up.
Very different from the type of music you found your way into.
Well, yeah, I guess. But my older brother, I remember growing up, I used to flip through his records, his cassettes, and his 8-tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember seeing like Def Leppard's Pyromania in there.
Well, that's just
and I saw,
amazing.
Right, Back in Black. But then like, he had like some David Bowie in there. He had Prince, Madonna, all that
Big
stuff.
brothers, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing is that you get introduced to cool music earlier on than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, for sure.
So my brother-in-law is from Puerto Rico, and his father, who has the same name as him, is a very famous musician.
Mm-hmm.
He's passed away now, but it was, I can never remember the full name of the band, but it's Conjunto something or other. And it's funny because we've got kids that are about the same age. We'll go to Disney World or something,
Mm-hmm.
and like someone working in the hotel will come up to him and say, "You look like such and such," and they know him because he looks like his dad from this band back in Puerto Rico. So an amazing musical heritage there. Again, very different from you know what we're talking about, but
yeah, I mean, my father, my father grew up both my parents actually. Went from Puerto Rico and they moved to the Bronx when they were kids. And
that's kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it's like what I call the migration path of the Puerto Rican. It goes from New York from Puerto Rico to New York, and then somewhere in Florida, like mostly Orlando and Tampa.
Right. Yeah.
But my dad, coming from a real musical family, when I had gotten older and got really interested in playing guitar, he bought me, my first guitar, and he knew how to tune because of all the guitar players in his family. Like he just pick it up
by ear.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And he passed that skill on to me.
I don't even. Not many people.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I use my little iPhone app because I can't do it.
That Boss Tuner app comes in handy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like an imposter, but in the absence of a detuned guitar, I'd rather have some form of tuning going on. Now, did your father play too, or he could just tune?
No, he could tune, and that was basically, he didn't play any instruments or anything.
And what did he buy you?
My first guitar was from it's no longer there, but we got it from the Cash America Pawn. They used to be across from Alpine Liquors.
Okay.
And it was in 1984 or 85, and I still have it. Ibanez Roadstar 2.
Ibanez is the gateway drug to guitars for
it is
most, at least in the electric world. There was this whole period of time, and I don't know, Pantera and this metal period where everybody had like a BC Rich or an Ibanez guitar. That was their entry point into it.
Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman and Slayer were using BC Riches, and Alex Skolnick and Testament was an Ibanez guy,
right.
And then like just about everybody switched to ESP in the 90s.
Right.
And I'm definitely an ESP guy now, but I have a soft spot for Ibanez because of that. Like I still have that guitar, but unfortunately it's not playable anymore because the bridge was like proprietary and you can't find the parts.
You're right. I got this Ben Weinman ESP
semi-hollow, right?
Semi-hollow body with the what is it called? Always Tune or Evertune?
Oh, the Evertune. I've been wanting to try one of
those.
those.
The thing weighs like a Volkswagen, though. That Evertune system like triples the weight.
Really?
Like most new guitarists, you buy a bunch of guitars more than you'd ever play. You don't know what you're buying at first, and so you kind of figure that out. But one of the big things about that guitar was the pickups that it had on it, and I didn't realize this because I bought it used from like Guitar, whatever. What's the Guitar
Center?
Guitar Center, yeah.
Okay.
And whoever sold it had switched out the pickups. So I had just these generic whatever pickups. It was still a beautiful guitar, but it was so friggin' heavy. And the pickups were just not there. So I ended up trading that in for an Ibanez, and it was one of those super thin Ibanez
Yes.
bodies.
Love those.
It was fun to play, although I kept breaking the strings on it for some reason, but I got rid of that too. So I kind of stick with Fenders and Gibsons and stuff now, but they're definitely fun guitars to play around with. So when did you start getting like serious? Were you doing lessons, or were you just in your room doing your own thing? Or
I've taken maybe like 4 formal lessons my entire life, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I would just I had a really good friend of mine by the name of Rob Cameron that I went to middle school with. This kid was like a year older than me, and he was already playing Randy Rhoads solos.
Yeah.
Like this dude was playing Crazy Train and like everything, could play like all of Kirk Hammett solos.
He was the Kirk Hammett to your Gary Holt.
Yeah, basically. And
you know that story that I'm referring to. Yeah,
I do. Yeah. So Rob showed me kind of like my first licks and first chords, and like I borrowed a bunch of the Metallica tablature books from him, and he taught me how to read tab.
Right.
And that was it. I was just playing along to the CDs,
That's awesome. So it was Metallica kind of, there's a lot of the guys that I have in here that are probably 10 years younger than I am that are into punk.
Uh-huh.
For some reason, Dookie is the album that they all learn to play bass and guitar to.
Yeah.
So with metal, usually it's Injustice for All, or it's one of that stage of thrash metal albums that everybody gets into. What was your album? Do you remember like the first one that you just put on your pillow and slept with at night?
Like I remember when I was like probably 10 when Injustice for All came out.
How old are you?
I remember I'm 41. I'll be 42 in a couple months.
Okay, I'll be 45, so we're about the same age.
Yeah. So I remember hearing one when it first came out, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then like I'd gotten the album, and it was just kind of like, it was like a lot heavier than the stuff I was used to listening to.
Right.
And then the Black Album dropped, and the Black Album was it for everybody. People can have their opinions about that album, but that's what kind of made me revisit the rest of the catalog.
Sure.
And then the rest of the catalog just, all of a sudden, Black Album over here, rest of the catalog right here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That Black Album is an interesting turning point in their career.
Oh, for sure.
I hope, I don't know if it's possible, but I hope they have one more great album in them. I mean, their last 2 I liked better than the 2 or 3 before them, but
Death Magnetic was a banger. Like I liked
The Day That Never Was, and one like could almost be an A and a B side.
I said that. Yeah. I said that when it came out. I remember, but like for me, on that album, it's Judas Kiss all the way. Just that dissonant, riff, and then it's so cool.
The galloping drum beat.
Yeah,
it was funny because when I was a kid, Lars was like the pinnacle of drumming. Like, I just remember the video for one when he's doing the blast beats on the kick drum, just thinking, oh my God, what is this? This sounds amazing. But now he gets so much heat from everybody. Like everybody shit talks him. And I mean, he's a squillionaire. He's like the Jeff Bezos of heavy metal drummers. So maybe that has a lot to do with the heat that he catches. But I mean, people have become a lot more technical. But then another thing that I think is true, and this is really a problem for me in metal, is difficult and good are not.
They're not one and the same.
They're not one and the same. And I think people, you start hearing some of this like Dragon Force, or who's the guy who was a strapping young lad, and
Gene Hoglan, who's one of my favorites, by the way.
But who's the lead singer?
Devin Townsend.
Yeah, Devin Townsend. Like, so I'm a big Mastodon fan.
Yeah.
And they kind of get into this whole proggy metal type of scene. And once you get into that world, then people start getting into other types of metal. But Devin Townsend always comes up, and I've tried to listen to it, and I just can't do it. Not to take anything away from him, but it gets to the point where it brings back memories of Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. It's like, what you're doing is bananas hard, but this is not something I'm going to drive around in my car and listen to.
And it's funny, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine. I forgot what band I was talking about. You brought up Ben Wyman. I was talking about Dillinger Escape Plan. Yeah. So I had gone to see Dillinger Escape Plan at State Theater on their farewell tour.
I was at that concert with you.
I had my son with me, and I was with my buddy Derek and my other friend Kristen. And
I sat up in the balcony and ate pizza and drank PBR watching me.
We were on the floor for some reason, and this is not a testament to Dillinger, because they're an amazing live band. But my son was like tired. He was probably about 15, 16 at the time. He was tired, and he actually like was sitting on a stool downstairs falling asleep. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I digress. Dillinger, I was talking to one of my buddies and I was like, I'm just too stupid for these guys. That's what it is.
Uh-huh.
And again, I'm not insulting them. They're so talented, but like the odd time signatures and the dissonance and whatnot, like I got to take a break every couple of minutes. Like, all right, let me readjust and then go back and listen.
So I differ from you on them, not to say that I'm any smarter or dumber or anything else, but I have this thing, and I don't know at what point it happened with music, where the more challenging of a listen it is, the more interested I get in it. And so it's really sent me off onto these weird rabbit holes and tangents of music that you've got to work your way. And I don't want to say up to it, because that makes it sound like there's something you don't understand. And I don't think that's it. I think it's more taste, like you're saying. But, I just remember, what was it Misery Machine? Miss Machine? What was that album?
Florence and the Machine?
No. It was the
Dillinger album?
Yeah. Anyway, I remember hearing it for the first time. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is this? I don't know what this is. And then I listened to it again, then I listened to it again, then I listened to it again. And each time it was like a layer of the onion or pulled back. And it's like, oh. And then you can kind of hear what they're doing. But I love that show. I was so glad I got to see them before they left. And none of the things that they've tried to do independently of that band have fared quite as well as that band.
Well, Ben's playing with Suicidal Tendencies, which, being a guy who's probably around my age, that's got to be cool to play with somebody.
And not only that, but what's his?
Greg is doing. Oh, the drummer. I don't know
Slayer.
What he's doing.
Lombardo. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Lombardo's
so,
doing Suicidal also. Yeah.
So
he gets to play with Mike Muir and Dave Lombardo.
Yeah, like, Suicidal, cool Dillinger, Escape Plan, and Slayer in one band, and that's why I love like these Mr. Bungle albums and all these.
Oh yeah.
Did you hear that new? Well, it's not. I think you might have been the one who pointed out.
Yeah.
It's actually an old track that they re-recorded.
The whole album is they're re-recording one of their demos, like boombox demos from the 1980s. Yeah. But they brought in Scott Ian for guitar from Anthrax, and then I forgot who else is on it. But like you have Mike Patton there. The guy's a genius.
Yeah, he really is. Genius, prolific, and just he's got such a wealth. I mean, you could just. Again, go down a rabbit hole with him. And I go back to Faith No More, and it's funny because it was the album titled Epic, or was the song Epic? What was
the album? Was Angel Dust, I think.
No, Angel Dust was the next one after it.
Yeah, I know Epic was the song.
So that album, I was in 8th grade or 9th grade when that came out, and I just loved them. And so the albums that came after, I remember getting, but I didn't listen to as much as that first one. But going back now, there's so much good stuff there. But I was listening to Helmet recently, and I hadn't listened to Helmet in ages, and that was another one that was.
They're still on my bucket list. I've never seen them.
Well, they're another one that have kind of splintered off into a bunch of bands. I think the drummer is now in Battles. It's like a 2-person band, and they do a bunch of instrumental stuff. But anyway, so in high school, were you in bands? Were you playing at that level yet? Not
really. Like I jammed with a couple of friends. Like I know. Buddy of mine, Jeremy Gomez, I had jammed with him in high school. He was, doing vocals, and we, had a couple of other friends with us. Jeremy and I actually got in a band later on and, played the State Theater a few times, things like that.
That's cool.
But in high school, I wasn't really, like I aspired to do it, but I don't know if I just wasn't around the right people, or, maybe I guess all the, what's the phrase I'm looking for? All the
stars had it align,
right? The stars just didn't align. I actually didn't even really get in my first like serious band until I was like 28.
Yeah. And what is it that? How did the stars align to make that happen?
Jeremy Gomez called me up one day and said, "Hey, I'm jamming with these guys. We want another guitar player. Do you want to do it?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I learned the songs, and we probably. I don't know how many shows we played. It wasn't too many.
What was the name of that band?
Oh, I cringe when I say this, and Jeremy, when he hears this, is probably going to kill me. I was never a fan of the name, but the name was Falling Awake.
Falling Awake?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, never a fan of that name. He
knows
that.
I mean, so Nasty Savage is like an old school metal band.
I know about Ron Galletti. Yeah,
and they're very popular, but that's one of the worst. I can't, that name.
Yeah, but it works. It plays though.
I guess. And then Dave Decker, who's been on this show a bunch of times, he did this tongue in cheek. But one of the bands that he was in was Vaginosaur Jr., which which I thought was, that was bad intentionally, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So Falling Awake, a
Yeah.
couple, and so what was spell the demise of that band? Just disinterest after a period of time from everybody, or
I was kind of clashing with the other guitar player, and
as to the direction you were going, or what type of music you were going to play, or what? Just
yeah, I mean,
personality?
it was personality clashes, and I was kind of clashing with him, and like I just like the day before a show, and it was a really small show that maybe it was at like a really tiny bar that's not there anymore, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm not doing this. You guys have fun tomorrow. And then about 3 months later, that other guy ended up being out of the band, and the bass player from who was in Falling Awake with me actually ended up moving over to guitar, and that guy was one of my best friends since before that band.
Right, right.
So his name's Greg Hartley. Greg and I on guitar. I was like, yeah, totally, I'm doing it. I got to show him the songs anyway. I'll totally do it. And it was awesome. And that's when we ended up doing the State Theater after that.
Still is that band or a different band?
As Falling Awake. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when that band went away, what was your next one?
I left that band a few months later for Blood in the Water.
Okay.
Blood in the Water was kind of like a melodic death metal band, but the lyrics were real tongue in cheek. Like some of the song titles were like Wolf Dick.
Yeah.
And it was basically about a werewolf.
Sure.
Yeah. And then another one was called Snapmare, and the lyrics were basically about wrestling with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And that was with my buddy Derek Wankel, another good friend of mine. Derek was in a bunch of bands out here too. Like one of them was Silence After Tragedy. That was probably like his biggest one that he did.
Okay.
But it was great. We only did like a handful of shows, and then I don't even know why it ended up splitting up. But the other guitar player I played bass in that band actually. But one of the guitar players was Evan Ursidi, and Evan owns a small venue in Newport Richie called the Verona.
Okay.
Which is hopefully going to be able to keep its doors open. But
that's still open and still going?
Yeah, I know he's doing live streams out there.
Okay.
He started a couple of weeks ago where he's having bands come in, and maybe like you have to RSVP, and there's like maybe 10 to 20 people there, and then he's live streaming it.
And what type of work were you doing when you got out of high school as far as a day job?
Oh, dude. Just really, retail, stuff like that.
Sure.
Like I worked for, let me think here. I got out of high school, and I was one of these guys that like couldn't really figure out what I was going to do. Like a lot of us,
Well, if you had a 15-year-old in 2016, that means you had him in around 2001.
2003. Yeah.
Okay. So how old were you at that time?
When my son was born, I was 24.
Relatively young father.
Yeah,
Did you just have the one child?
Well, I have a stepdaughter also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so how old is he now? He's got to be 18 or?
My son will be 18 in February. My stepdaughter turned, and I hate saying stepdaughter. So my daughter turned 18 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
So
are they still in the house, or are they moved out? Or?
Yeah, they're still in the house.
So there's 4 of you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any musicians besides you in the house?
My son was in marching band in his freshman year. And
good drummer is the hardest thing to come by.
Yeah, right. And he's taken a little bit of an interest in playing bass. But I mean, we have every instrument in the world in the house.
Yeah.
So, I don't force it on him, and wherever he wants to play, he goes play. But I'm not like, you have to take lessons today.
Right.
What I mean?
Well, that's just it. You got to make it fun. If it feels like work, they're not going to do it. So Blood in the Water, what comes after that?
Then I took a hiatus. When Blood in the Water broke up, I was in my first marriage, and my ex-wife didn't really care for me, being gone 3 nights a week, whatever, doing rehearsals.
It's a tough world to be in a marriage.
And being that was only about 11 years ago or something like that, the technology wasn't where it is today, where like now I don't even have to like really see my bandmates except, to jam before a show. You know what I mean?
Practice is tough to do virtually, but recording or working on writing an album, you can easily do from your home.
So she wasn't a fan of me, being gone a lot. So I made that compromise, and, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to take a break, and that's it. So that break lasted until, fast forward a few years ago, I'm engaged to somebody else who, thankfully fully supports my hobbies and my dreams. And I got the call from Mechanism roughly about a year and 3 months ago or something like that.
So Mechanism, that's probably the most successful of the bands you've been in.
For sure.
So talk to the people who are listening about Mechanism type of music,
Sure.
where they can find it and all that sort of thing.
So Mechanism was, and I kind of want to give a little bit of backstory too. So
Please, yeah.
yeah, so about 8 years ago, I was at a show at the second Brass Mug location
Okay.
where the Pegasus is now actually,
Okay.
and they were playing on a show with Burning Fair Verona,
Okay.
which that's Evan who owns the Verona bar. That was his band, and I went up to see Evan because we were friends from Blood in the Water, and I went to I I ended up running into Bobby Keller, who's the lead guitar player of Mechanism, or was rather until last week,
Oh wow.
and I ended up running in. We just we started shooting the shit about music and guitars. Found out we own the exact same guitar, which is this ESP Kirk Hammett, but it's like in this rare like metallic green burst finish,
Sure.
and we just kind of instantly bonded over
Doesn't he
that.
have one with like the mummy on it now, or
He's had those, yeah,
Yeah.
since like the '90s. He's got a bunch of them with the custom,
the cool
like
one is the
Mummy and
greenie
Dracula.
that he got. The
Peter Green one,
yeah. That's crazy. The story behind that guitar.
yeah, it is.
Anyway, I cut you off. Keep
That's
going.
all right. That's all right. So, Bobby and I were, kind of became friends, and we stayed in touch. Anytime I'd go to Orlando, I'd hit him up. He came and crashed with us when we went and saw Slayer at Hard Rock.
Yeah.
And then about 2 years ago, they put out this wonderful EP called The War Inside, and I was just like, dude. If I sent him a text message as long as my arm, I'm like, I love this. And
Yeah.
if you want a second guitar player, I'm down. And it took about a year, but I got the call, and he's like, hey, would you be available next Saturday to go play in West Virginia at a festival? Like, yeah.
Oh wow, sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and did that. And it was a bit of a shit show on my part, just because I was so nervous from not having played out. Like I, botched a couple of parts here and there,
Yeah.
but it was still a fun experience. And unfortunately, last week, Bobby left, and I ended up just deciding to leave also. And I'm gonna go ahead and I already apologized to her yesterday when we were kind of chatting over Facebook, but I gotta apologize to Mecca because I kind of let my emotions get the best of me and just kind of put my notice out on Facebook before contacting her. Bobby already knew too at that point, but what are you gonna do? But it was a fun experience, and I learned a lot. And
did you record it
great.
all on any of their albums?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. I think we didn't really work on anything while I was there. It was just kind
Sure.
of like, all right, we got this gig coming up. Let's do this. you
Right.
know?
Right.
And that
Now,
was it.
I know you got to kind of keep your cards close to your vest, but you are. Can we at least say that you're working on something?
Yeah, I put that out there already. I
Okay.
am working on something. We did record a song, and I'm really, really proud of it. I'll let you hear it before I leave.
How does the music
So-
compare to what you've done before? Is it in the similar vein? Is it different? Is it the next evolution? Like, how would you?
It's different. It's got the it's got the heavy stuff, but the choruses are real melodic.
Yeah.
Like the guy can the singer is just, it was crazy because when we were in the studio, he was just like basically coming up with his vocal melodies and lyrics on the spot. And I'm just like mind blown, you know what I mean?
It's funny how just
Yeah.
like a piece gets changed or a new thing gets introduced, and it kind of reignites your excitement about things, because you can get caught in these plateaus playing or what you're listening to or what you're writing, where it's just like you feel like you're not progressing or not getting. And sometimes it comes from within you to change it, but sometimes it comes from outside you with
Yeah.
a new vocalist or new whatever. And I've talked to a lot of bands where like a new drummer just can make a huge
Oh, yeah.
difference in the speed that you can play, how tight you sound. I mean, obviously that's such a big part of recording, and then vocalist, all of it's important for different reasons,
Mhm.
but it's funny, vocalists and drummers always seem to be something that kind of makes a band turn a corner. As far as live shows, what are some of your first show, best show type of thing?
All right. First show.
Or most memorable?
Sure. First show was Metallica with
Oh.
Fight, Suicidal Tendencies, and
Oh.
Candlebox
Candlebox.
at the fairgrounds on the property where the amphitheater is, but before the amphitheater was there.
So I saw
Yeah.
Butthole Surfers, Stone Temple Pilots.
Nice.
I saw Henry Rollins and Helmet there. I remember that very well. It's funny because the last fight I was in was at a Candlebox concert. It's just
funny.
as a weird.
I don't picture people fighting at a Candlebox show. That's
Well,
weird.
it was at Janus Landing, and it wasn't inside; it was outside
Yeah.
because there was a bunch of people that were trying to listen
Yeah.
through the fence, and someone I was with made a smart ass remark to a guy, and they started beating him up, and I tried to stop it, and he started punching me, and
Yeah.
went from there. But
Are
anyway,
we past the statute of limitations on that?
that's I know a good lawyer.
All
So
right,
we're
cool.
all
Oh,
good.
okay, there you go.
So Metallica though, that's
Yeah.
what year would that have
That
been?
was That was August 20th, 1994. I still have the ticket stub. I was 15 years old.
So was that in like
Yeah.
Load or Reload era?
Pre. It was
Between Black Album and
they
Load?
were torn behind that box set they put out, the
Oh
live
yeah,
box
yeah.
set.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Fun, cool or funny
Lars
enough.
was still on coke, and
Dude,
James
he-
was still drinking, and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so good Metallica.
Yeah, right. He what was I gonna say? Regarding that show, Suicidal Tendencies set from that day is on YouTube in its entirety. And it's not professionally shot, but it's like a decent quality camera.
Was it
And
what's his face?
Rob Trujillo was playing bass.
That's kind of crazy.
Well, it's funny too, because when Newstead left, I'm like, watch, they're gonna get Trujillo, and that's exactly what happened.
God, I love what is it? Is it some kind of or what's the
Some Kind of Monsters, the movie, yeah.
where they go through all the bass, and it was just like
Twiggy Ramirez, Pepper
Twigger,
Keenan,
Scott
yeah.
Reeder from
Yeah.
Caius, Les Claypool from Primus. It's
Yeah.
just like Les Claypool's always got the funniest story. He's like I was more of like a soul R&B guy, and I came there.
Well, because he auditioned for them in '86 after Cliff died too, because he and Hammett were like high school friends.
Well, what's interesting, and I didn't know this until somewhat recently, is Larry Lalonde, the guitar player for Primus, was in not Repulsion, but
Possessed,
like
Possessed,
one
yeah.
of the first like death metal kind of band.
Yeah,
And
they
what
were-
a different type of music from Primus. You know?
for sure.
So I didn't realize that until was it either in the grindcore movie that I saw or in the Murder in the Front Row, but
I think it was in Murder in the Front.
Yeah, I
Row.
remember seeing that. So it was kind of.
I got to watch that again. So good.
So good. So good. You know what's funny though is I was getting so annoyed by the narrator. I was like, "What is this guy? Who's this guy narrating?" And turned out it was a comedian, Brian
Posehn, yeah.
who's like a huge metalhead. And as soon as I was like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense." But before I knew it was him, I was like, why did they choose this guy to
Posehn's
narrate
the
this?
man, dude.
Well,
he's so cool.
Knowing it's him makes
Yeah.
it a lot easier. But at the time, I was like, this guy's. I don't get this voice, but in any event, so that was first.
That was my very first. Concert.
Okay,
Yeah.
best.
Yeah. That's hard. I have
three
to.
best, five best.
So I have to do it based on like,
I love talking about concerts.
arena shows, stadium shows, and like club shows, right?
Pick one of each or do however you want.
If I'm gonna do an arena show, if I'm gonna do, and I even have to split that, because if I'm gonna do an arena show, like I saw Metallica in Orlando a couple
You don't
years
have
ago.
to leave till 6. So
Amazing.
you would.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
So best stadium show, Metallica 2017. My son was with me. It was the first time he got to see him. Had a bunch of buddies together. We tailgated.
Was that after Hardwired or before?
It was the Hardwired tour.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, but I've also saw U2 at Ray J once or twice. And I think, like, I'm having a hard time remembering, but I think I might have seen U2 in both the old Tampa Stadium, the Sombrero, and I think I saw him again in Ray J after Ray J opened.
I've seen him twice in Ray J.
Right.
I saw him when it was, I think it was the Beautiful Day album, whichever one that was. And then when they just did the Joshua Tree where they played it full, that was pretty cool.
So arena show, I'm gonna have to go with Iron Maiden, and I've seen them 3 times now in different arenas.
Very cool.
Yeah, I saw them. I saw them in South Florida in like 2009. At the time, it was the Bank Atlantic Center. I don't know what it is now. Then I saw them at Amalie twice. Saw them in like, I want to say 2011 at Amalie, and then I saw them, I don't know, in like, I don't remember what year that was, but it was like whichever show was after that, like 2016, something like that.
Right.
And that was cool because Iron Maiden is my son's like favorite band of all time.
Oh wow!
And it was his first Maiden
What's
show.
his favorite Maiden album?
I would probably have to go with Number of the Beast for him. I'll have to ask him,
Sure.
but I mean, he was 2 years old in the car with me singing 2 minutes to midnight.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
I wonder how much I should introduce my kids to certain types of music. Like, right now that they've really got a pop sensibility, but every now and again I can get them listening to a song that they don't realize is a little bit heavier and catch them bopping their
Dude,
head to it.
let him hear it all. Just the only thing that I was mindful of is if there were like some, like I was very mindful of the lyrics.
Oh
So
yeah.
like I didn't need him at 4 years old, hearing Slayer talk about sacrificing virgins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want Slayer
Yeah.
lyrics or Misfits lyrics.
Right.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
gotta you gotta
Right.
understand the context that those were being written in.
Right. And it's all tongue in cheek.
For sure,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, I was invited, given the opportunity, and I chickened out to go play with Wolfface up in Gainesville at Fest
Oh, you should have done it.
to play. They one night the Friday night set they did Misfits the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You should watch it. And
Yeah, I'll
then
check it
the
out.
following night was Originals, but they were going to let me come play Skulls with them. And so I'd listened to that song a million times, but I never sat down and read the lyrics to it. And I was like, oh wow, it's chopping little girls' heads off and putting them on the wall.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So in any event.
Yeah.
All right. So those are your arena concerts.
Yeah.
Now we go to medium level venues,
So I have
concert
seen-
halls.
Yeah, like smaller shows. I've seen probably like it's
Don't worry about it.
if
I'm
I
not gonna
gotta
judge
if I
you.
gotta okay, I'm gonna give you two.
I have like two people listening to the
I'm
show.
gonna give you
that's-
two.
yeah.
I'm gonna give you two. So one of my favorite bands who I think is just completely underrated, and I was talking to you about them a couple of weeks ago, Machine Head.
Yeah.
Like I've seen Machine Head probably about a dozen or so times.
They
yeah.
they could have been much bigger than they were. And that one album, I mean, everybody just the Blackened or
Blackening is the one everybody
Blackening,
jocks,
yeah,
man. Everybody
yeah.
loves that one.
yeah,
I actually like the one that came after it more,
Right.
Unto the Locust.
right.
But I think with like Catharsis kind of like stalled some of their momentum that they had. The album was so divisive.
Everybody had to weather the new metal
Yeah.
storm and some of this
Well,
other stuff.
Catharsis was like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
they definitely did the new metal thing. Like if you listen to Burning Red and Supercharger, those
Yeah.
were like straight new metal. Like Rob Flynn straight up rapping on
Yeah.
on the Burning Red. I don't mind it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
a lot of people did mind it.
Purists didn't, yeah.
Right. And that's why they lost their record deal. And they're, when by the time they came around with Through the Ashes of Empires, that one came out in Europe 6 months before it hit here because they lost their American record deal.
Right.
But it did so well in Europe that Roadrunner
Got 'em
re-signed
back,
them.
yeah, yeah.
But in any event, I've seen them. I would say like the best show that I saw them at was probably again with my son
Yeah.
at the State Theater. And it was his first show, his first ever concert.
Oh, wow.
He's a month shy of 13 years old. I told myself I'm not going to take him shows till he's a teenager. But I'm
Put
like,
headphones
it's
on
a
them or earplugs or
no, I'm
yeah.
a bad parent. But we
Oh,
were,
I've been to Bucks
Yeah.
games and I hate going
Yeah.
to Bucks games, but I've been there and
Yeah.
those cannons go off and I'm looking, there's these
Yeah.
little babies that are just frying
Yeah.
out in the sun with those cannons going off.
Now that I think about it, I think he might have had earplugs
Yeah.
in, but we were right up front on the rails,
Oh, wow.
for about a good 75-80% of the set. And it was cool because it was a band that he really loved. It's
Yeah.
a band that I've loved for, decades.
Right.
And we got to go. So them, but then also Hatebreed.
Oh, really?
Hatebreed, yes. I've seen them. I've
More
seen them
hard, a
from-
little more hardcore.
Yeah. And the thing is that band, like they, a lot of people give them flack because, they have the, tough guy strength through adversity kind of lyrics.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? That helped me through some difficult times in my
Right.
life. So
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And I've had the pleasure of meeting those guys a few times. I actually ended up about a year and a half ago on Obituaries.
That's Jamie Josta's band, right?
Yeah.
I just read something.
Yeah.
He's got Josta's Pasta.
Josta's Pasta.
Yeah, coming out.
Yeah. But I ended up on Obituaries tour bus.
Oh, wow.
With like at the Ritz over here. Buddy of mine is good friends with Ken Andrews from Obituary and with Matt Byrne from Hatebreed. They were on tour together. So he calls me up day of the show. He's like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Nothing. Cool. You want to go see Hatebreed and Obituary? Yeah. We get there and he's waiting there behind the venue for me with 2 all access passes and tickets. I'm like, oh, cool.
Wow.
So
That's the
I
call
ended
you
up
want to get. Yeah.
on their tour bus with, with
The guy's in Obituary got to be in their mid-50s by now.
something like that.
Yeah.
But Corpse Grinder was on the bus. Like
Yeah.
everybody was on the bus. It was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
awesome. And then what about the smallest venue top shows?
Well, that's what I was saying about Hatebreed, because
Okay.
I've only seen them on a huge stage like once or twice,
Right.
but like I've caught them at State Theater a bunch of times, like more times they could catch.
So as far as albums, you mentioned a little bit AC/DC and what was the other one that you said your brother put you on?
Pyromania from Def Leppard.
Pyromania
That
from
was
Def Leppard. There's like 2 or 3 Def Leppard albums that I can just put on and listen to.
And that's one of them for me.
Yeah. Amazing. It's funny to me with how pop culture kind of recirculates and reinvents, and that hasn't somehow popped back up yet. I don't even know what would be the Def Leppard of today.
I don't even know, man. And I don't.
I wish it would come back because it was so fun.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. But I'm trying to think of bands that like are like nobody, I mean, Def Leppard's still around, so I guess there's still the Def Leppard of today in a way.
Well, for sure, but but I mean, in their prime, kind of fun metal, hard rock music, and so I can kind of pick a band on either side of it. I'll be interested to see. So you've got Nickelback, who's kind of the lightning rod that takes shit for everybody, and then there's Foo Fighters, which is kind of dad rock. And I think neither of them are them, but they're both kind of on different sides of them. And
I would actually put Five Finger Death Punch in that category too.
I've never heard a single one of their songs, but they catch a ton of heat.
They catch a ton of heat. I try not to bag on other bands just because like I'm in a band, and when people do that, it's like I have my opinions, but the thing is that this is how I look at it. Regardless how I feel about any band's music, and especially like Five Finger Death Punch. Those guys are killing it. They're playing, to 20,000 people every night.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're doing something right. So why bag on them? You know what I mean?
So before COVID hit, how often were you playing live? Was it quite a bit?
Well, I was doing before COVID hit. We were probably doing like, let me think. We were doing like one show a month, something like that.
Do you miss it?
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah. I just it was out of my life for so long that once I got it back, I was like, oh my God, this is what was missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it sounds like you're in a good place.
Oh yeah.
With your family, with your music, with everything.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? And again, cut me off if I'm stepping into the subject matter you don't want to get into, but
That's
what's
cool.
the plan with this new one? Is this going to be like the thing? Are you full length touring?
I mean,
that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we've talked about it in depth. We were actually all on a Zoom meeting last night.
Okay.
And we kind of we're mapping out some goals.
Are you a songwriter as well? Are you?
It's funny because I never thought of myself as a songwriter, but like I'm the only guitar player in this band right now, and the guy that I'm replacing is just I told these guys straight up, like the first Zoom meeting we ever had, I'm like, listen, I am not him. I can't do what he does. Yes, I can play these songs,
right?
But his abilities are different, and in a lot of ways, and in most ways, excel mine.
Right.
But what it's forced me to do, it's really challenged me. And
sharpen your sword, yeah.
Right. And I've been able to, I learned the songs pretty quickly, like the stuff that they already have. But as far as being a songwriter, like the three of us wrote this song that we just recorded, and God, I can't wait to drop it. And again,
when is that happening?
Well, we got to get the video together next.
Okay.
But we're anticipating probably like December, January earliest.
Okay. Do you have a name for it? I know you won't say it, but do you have a name for it?
I do. We do have a name for it.
Okay.
And not gonna.
You can tell me off here.
I will. Yeah, like I said, I'll let you hear it before then I got it on my phone.
Cool. So, what as far as music that you're listening to right now, what's in heavy rotation with you?
I have been listening to the music of the band that I am playing it now, just trying to get a feel for everything. But also, like, I know the Riley Gale died like a week or two ago.
Did you see that show when they came with High on Fire?
I did not. And I've been listening to a lot of Power Trip lately.
They're amazing.
They are.
And you listen to it and you're like,
yeah.
They hang right in there with the big four, yeah.
It's weird because like I had this conversation with my son the other day. Like my music taste is actually pretty eclectic, but not at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I like all kinds of different artists from different genres, but I also like what I like. And a lot of times when somebody introduces me to somebody new, I'm just like, you know what I mean?
It's true.
Yeah.
You know, forever I was on the cutting edge of what was new and everything. And now more often than not, you posted today, you can trust yourself in the first
Yes,
6 Black Sabbath albums. And
Yeah.
I've heard different versions of that. Trust the first 4, the first 5, and the first 6.
Yeah.
You get to 5 or 6, it's
Listen, Sabotage had some bangers on it. Into the Universe.
No, for
I
sure,
mean,
yeah.
come on.
But God, did that band go through some periods? But
They did.
wow, their music is just amazing. I saw their reunion tour. Did you see them when they came back?
Yeah, I was there.
And dude was like 70, running around on the stage and dumping water on his head, and I mean, hanging in there.
Yeah, and like who else?
Who was drumming for them for that?
Tommy
concert?
Clafitos,
Okay.
Rob Zombie's drummer, I think.
Yeah.
But
didn't they have Brad Wilk for a minute?
He recorded on the album.
Okay.
On 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. But who else in the history of music, especially modern music, can lose 2 fingers on his fretting hand and invent an entire genre of music? Tony Iommi. Like,
there's so much about him and them and the music and the swagger, and I mean these were not like effeminate dandies. These were blue collar steel town.
Oh yeah, they were from Birmingham.
I mean, Geezer Butler's like a badass. Like, there's stories about him just like destroying people, and then with Tony, he's got the composite
thimbles,
tips on his fingers. It just created a whole world of music.
And that whole scene in Birmingham, like Priest was from Birmingham, and I want to say that Zeppelin might have even been from Birmingham too. I don't know about Motorhead, but like that whole area, it's just like, it's like we have, Seattle and LA and Chicago and places like that are hotbeds, but Birmingham, especially in the late 60s, early 70s, was definitely a pretty big hotbed too. So,
I really went in all, head first into the whole kind of doom, sludge, slower metal type of thing. Like, I'm not coming out of it now, but it was almost exclusively all I was listening to for a while. And, all of that is Black Sabbath at heart. Where was I going with that? There's a point I was going to make. I forget what the point.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, cool. No, I'm getting old, but I forget what it was. But in any event, that's what it was. I was watching Mindhunter. Did you ever see that show on Netflix about serial killers?
I want to say that I did.
Well, the finale of the first season, they play "In the Light" by Zeppelin. And that, I was like, this is possibly one of the best doom songs I've ever heard, and it's Led Zeppelin playing it. And I don't even know if I'd ever heard that song before. And I was like,
started that show, but we didn't finish it.
So my God. Well, and then they start out season 2 with Roxy Music. What's the name of that song? Melvin's covered it. Anyway, I love when shows like introduce me to music or remind me of songs that I haven't heard.
Oh yeah.
In ages. Anyway, well, I appreciate you coming by today. I can't wait to hear the new stuff. I wish it was getting dropped now so I could promote it now. But when it's live, let me know and I'll put it out on the. Well,
I got more time.
Okay,
so,
all right.
You want to go? Let's go.
Good. We can keep talking.
Yeah,
music.
Let's go.
So, so with your recording, are you recording it here in Tampa? I know we talked a little bit about who you're using.
I can't really go into that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. And how is that going? Is
it went amazing?
Is this your first recording?
No, I actually, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit, but okay. It was amazing. Like the thing is, we're looking for somebody that didn't just record our takes.
Right.
We needed somebody that we could bounce ideas off
Corrections.
Right. We needed somebody to actually act as a producer and not just an engineer.
Did you have a sound idea that you wanted? Like, I want to sound like this or I want to sound like that?
We did, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I have very specific tastes with regards to albums that I like in their production.
Right.
So I'm a big fan of Andy Sneap's work. He's metal producer. He worked on a bunch of Exodus records. He did a couple of Megadeth records, like some of the newer Megadeth records. and his stuff just sounds pristine. Like you can hear everything.
You like a
Guitar,
very
bass,
clean
right?
sound.
And I communicated that to the person who produced this track, but it didn't matter. And I'm not saying that with a negative connotation.
Sure.
Like we went in there, he's like, all right, cool, plug in, this is what you're using. And I'm like, holy shit, you're right. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he nailed everything
Right away.
And yeah. And you know, we went in there with the song basically like 90% written. And, you know, there was one part in particular where he's just like, hey, I see what you're doing here, but try it this way. And, you know, I'm kind of a novice with a lot of that stuff, so I'm very open to listening to
You can
to
make
listening
me
to the
better.
inputs.
By all means,
Right,
do it. Yeah.
right. And I tried it his way. I'm like, oh my god, you're right. That sounds so much better now. It's vibing for real.
Right.
Yeah.
I talk about, I got to go into the studio with the Wolfface guys and
Yeah.
Dan, who's the bass player, owns Rock Garden Recording
Yeah,
over in
buyers. Yeah,
yeah, and I got to watch them, and it was so cool for me because there's so much there's so much that goes into this stuff that you listen to that you don't realize about, and just watching him set up the mics and you know how big of a part of the recording the drums are and how
Yeah.
much work it takes to get those right and everything else. It's just really cool to me. You know,
yeah,
it makes me appreciate a lot more of these albums that you know, not that I have a trained ear, but when you don't have any idea what's going on, it's just, oh, I like this, I don't like that. But now I can like a song because of how the bass sounds, just purely
Yeah.
for this, that, or the other reason. So,
So I'm going to tell you. So my other recording experience was probably about a year and a half ago, and my my buddy Chris that lives in New York. He's we got some mutual friends that live down here, and you might even be like mutuals with this guy,
Sure.
but Stu Beans on Facebook, amazing bass player, amazing singer, and then he's got like a cover thing he does on weekends.
Sure.
And he made a studio in his garage. Best name ever, Chocolate Starfish Studios.
oh yeah,
And he's not a Limp Bizkit fan, so that existed before that.
Oh, wow,
you know. But Chris and Stu are huge Kiss fans. They're a few years older than me, and they grew up on Kiss. They're huge Kiss fans, so much to the point that a few years ago they flew down to Key West and did the Gene Simmons masterclass with Gene.
oh wow,
And part of that class is you get to write a song with Gene.
oh wow,
So they wrote a song with Gene, and we recorded it. And I gotta find the. I don't mean to be rude on my phone, but I can't
Okay.
remember what he ended up calling it on Facebook, or I mean on Apple Music. But the song is called "Loose Lips Sink Ships."
perfect Kiss
Right.
song title.
And I got to do the guitars on it along with a gentleman named Frankie Castellano and another gentleman named Sergio.
Did Gene sing on it or?
Gene did not sing on it.
Okay.
But it was cool because it was my first kind of recording experience. And you know, got to go in and, you know, lay my guitars down, and I think Stu mixed it and did everything. And God, I can't find it on here, but
Don't worry about
I'll
it.
send it to you later.
Yeah.
But it's pretty, you know, it was a little bit outside of my wheelhouse because it's more of like, you know, straight up like, you know, rock and roll song,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
and I'm just used to playing fast all the time.
Well,
So,
but that's an interesting point. Is you're talking earlier about what you like, but being eclectic. And you know, I've got friends that play in some bands over in St. Pete that are a lot more kind of world music or tropical music, or have. But you know, you think back to bands like Sepultura or some of these other bands. I don't know if you've heard Zeal and Ardor, that metal album. It's almost like death metal slave hymns or something. It's just crazy. And I haven't really heard them or gotten into them, but I know a lot of people are really big into this. The Who, HU, they're like a, you know, I don't know if they're Middle Eastern or where they're from, but I think that's how we continue to create new stuff, is as these other influences kind of work their
for
way
sure.
in.
For
So
sure.
you know, I'm always excited to kind of hear something that sounds like it doesn't belong there, or is not something you've heard there before, but
Yeah.
somehow it works.
Well, you're gonna hear not particularly in this song that we just did, but there we are going to incorporate some of those other elements in here, and you know, they, without giving away too much, you'll hear some other cool elements in there.
So when you have the final product, when you have an LP, will you go vinyl? Will you go CD, tape, streaming? Have you thought that far ahead, or?
No, I think no, we haven't thought that far ahead. I know initially it's going to be available on streaming,
Sure.
and then probably after we start playing some shows and get a little reserve built up. Excuse me. We can look into doing a small vinyl run or something like that.
Right.
I kind of Googled some stuff and glanced over it recently.
I've been looking into it a lot because there's
yeah.
a couple bands that are local that I've you should have an album out. There's Ade Akloba who was on here last week. He's got this band Black Clash that is they're these young kids. He's this huge black guy, plays lead guitar and sings in it. Do you know them, or have you heard
I
them?
do not.
But they sound like Minor Threat, but with Cro-Mags vocals, cool. And it's just like these young kids who were not even alive. I was sent them a Wipers tune today. And it was like, that's from 83. Like, I don't even know if your mom was born yet. Like, this is way before you. And, but anyways, getting back to the point is I've been trying to figure out the whole world of vinyl, and it's a rough world because there's like 2 presses in Florida.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of companies online that will print it for you.
Yeah.
And, there's different options. Like you can do the colored and, you can do the,
there's like a plastic,
the black ones and all that stuff, and you can get it with or without a UPC label on it and all that stuff. And
generally my understanding is it's a financial loss, but it's a labor of love, just to have that out there. I'm a big fan of the Melvins, and in their documentary they show he and his wife, they press all of their vinyl.
Oh, that's cool.
At their house, and she does all the art for their covers, and it's this real kind of do-it-yourself, but a very professional do-it-yourself, and they do it at a higher price point, knowing that it's for the collector's market and not necessarily is like, if you want to listen to my music, you can go on Spotify or whatever, but if you want to have this thing to hold, you're going to pay a little bit more money, but you're going to have this product.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I have, pretty. I would like to think it's a pretty decent vinyl collection.
Yeah.
When I came in the office, I saw the Ozzy and Randy Rhoads poster, and told you I busted my old copy from the '80s out.
Sure.
I have a pretty decent vinyl collection. I have a pretty nice turntable direct drive with a Shure cartridge on it and decent setup at home. And then also I have 2 big drawers full of my CDs still. Like I still have all my CDs.
I ended up selling them all. My wife was like, "You get these out of here."
Yeah, and it's just there's just something about like being able to hold a record.
I still remember "And Justice for All," the liner notes. I was loved to draw, and I would draw every Pusshead thing that I could find. I just thought that was
amazing.
Oh, he was amazing. I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine. We haven't announced it yet, but we're actually putting on a concert in December.
Oh, cool.
But I was asking him he's the guy who did that poster there with the skulls. And
that's cool.
Skulls. Yeah, but I was like, I want something that's kind of like a mix between Pusshead and Raymond Pettibone, who is Greg Ginn and Black Flag's brother. He did all the Black Flag covers. The real kind of, that's actually his book right there in front of you.
Oh, with Osama on it?
Yeah, but anyway, I love those old do-it-yourself. Looks like they used a Sharpie and just ran 1,000 posters off of it. So in any event, well, I appreciate you coming by. I know you got more time. My wife's going to be blowing up my phone.
All good.
I need to head home.
All good.
But I can't wait and I'm ending a little bit early because I want to hear your track. But I can't wait for your new stuff to come out. Hopefully it'll come back on once that's out in the world, and we can talk about it, listen to it, and
absolutely.
Do you know Andrew Domestico?
I do not.
Okay, are you friends with him on Facebook?
No.
So you got to check him out. His deal is Blade of Sir. I think you'd really dig his stuff. He brought these by.
Cool.
But he's the most prolific. He's put out like an album every couple months, and actually his producer. Michael Sinclair is now the producer for this show, but
cool.
he does all of it himself. He records the drums, the guitar, the bass, does all of it himself. And on the ones that he sings on, some of them are instrumentals, but I think you guys will get along famously.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, he's another local metal guy.
I appreciate you having me, and
I appreciate the Monster. Yeah. My wife's like, you got to quit drinking those, but I was like,
hey, listen, I don't think that anybody who does something for you should, especially when it's their profession, should work for free. So
that was very
that
nice of you. I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you
N-
figured out a path forward on that issue. So
Thank
sounds
you.
like everything turned out the
It
way that
did.
it should have. All right. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right.